Hi, all. I am feeling much better today than I did at my last video, which was on, I think it was Saturday of last week. Um, yeah, like, actually, no, it was Sunday. I feel like worlds better. Um, and that is because I took all of my, like, scaredness and worry about diabetes, and instead of just like doing what I usually do about everything in my life and like just sitting there and like, oh, the world's ending. I actually went out and I did some research. And of course, as you can imagine, most of that research was geared towards weight loss. Um, but I had to really dig around. I found some pretty interesting information that I wanted to share with you all. So, the first thing there's this stigma around diabetes where you only get it other than type 1. Type 1 is something different, but type 2, you only get type 2 diabetes if you're bad, meaning that you have went out, you love McDonald's, you love soda, you love chips, you love all the things that are delicious in life, and you totally like went ape shit, and you got a ton of stuff. You drank boost to gain weight. You just did all this stuff, and so I think for a lot of gainers, there's this element of like shame with it. Like, I got it, I feel horrible, but I did, and I don't think that's all of it. I think there are some gainers that I've talked to in the past, none with my recent research, but um, the thing is that you can actually get that no matter what size you're at. There are actually um, genetic markers or flaws in our genes tied to our chromosomes where those genes enable the body to be more susceptible to something called adipoikines. And please forgive me, I'm not a biology major, I'm just going off memory of what I remember. But as you gather fat, which visceral fat is what surrounds your organs, where subcutaneous is like what's like more on the top, kind of like cellulite, but people that have more subcutaneous fat tend to be a little bit more softer feeling. Um, they basically, what happens is the more visceral fat that you have, the more these adipoikines, it's ADOPOIKINS, are created. And basically, my non biology speak. I'm a medical assistant, but this is not stuff that we covered. Um, I know some basic medications and how to give shots and IVs, and that's probably about it, and a few other office related things. Um, but this is like more biology specific. But basically, these adipoikin like factors create toxins that tie to our cells and cause cells to not work well. And that is kind of the case that works with insulin, where because insulin isn't quite working, our made insulin, we make in our body, everybody's insulin, um, basically that specific building block or that hormone, which that's what insulin is, doesn't recognize glucose as something that needs to be absorbed into fat because of the chemical reaction from the adipoikines. And all of this has to do with our cells during genetic development. Our cells, as we were created, they weren't people that have diabetes, type 2 specifically, they don't actually have the right sort of makeup in order to always let that glucose absorption happen into the cell with the insulin that their body makes. So what happens is they end up getting sick because their body doesn't recognize the oncoming glucose from eating. And so for gainers, because we eat a lot of food, we tend to develop more of this visceral fat, because the food that develops visceral fat tends to be the more fattening food. So things like an easily accessible food, pizza, cookies, soda, juices, all of those things are developing visceral fat. And those are the things that if you're diabetic, you want to try to. Now it's hard because I've read a lot of studies where people are like saying you should eliminate that. But I feel if you're a gainer, trying to eliminate like every cookie from your life or every donut from your life or every piece of pizza from your life is really going to be difficult. And I mean, if you have the level of insulin that you need to do that, then okay, then that isn't good. And then we have to move to step B, which I'm going to go over in a second. But you should try to keep a good balance in your life. So even though if you're gaining, you should always try to like keep to the food groups of like vegetables, fruit, grains, and dairy and meat and oil. Those all should be in your diet on a daily basis. You shouldn't just have like one and not the other because you're going to get sick. And so, with all of this work that I've done, what I began to realize is that I can go ahead and still get fat by gaining subcutaneous fat. And this led me on a whole bunch of different like research things, cool things that I found out from people. Like peanut butter is one of the things that can really help with gaining. Another thing is like eggs and other sorts of protein. Like multi-grain bread, but that's not like processed, can definitely help. Basically anything that's like a wholesome food but doesn't contain a lot of carbs. But you can find things that are higher in calories because there is some studies out there, and I went over this in my last video, about them saying, oh, only carbs cause weight gain. Well, I went back to the drawing board and I found out that that was actually not correct. That is a new method of research that is really solely probably driven at people as part of a diet that looked at how many carbs they ate. And if they're controlling carbs, they're going to control other things in their life too. So, the science is pointing me towards what we already know, which is just more calories in, less being burnt, equals some form of body growth, whether that's a muscle cell or a fat cell. It's going to create more growth. And so that was the first thing that I found out. Really cool, really interesting to find out. The other thing that I found out was that so that's kind of the preventative thing. And then there's cinnamon with chromium that you can try. I've been doing that and I've actually been feeling really good and alert. And my weight did drop a little bit, but I don't really think that's a result of this new diet. I think it's more a result of I got professionally weighed, and the professional weigh had me way lower than I thought that I was. And I was really sad because I thought it was like around 483 for the longest time. And they're like, oh no, you're like 469.4. And I was so sad. I was like so mad about it. I was like, fuck, and because I thought that I was making some really good progress, but so I don't really know if it's working. Some people said my face looks bigger or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see how this works. But I have been hitting at least around 4,500 calories a day, so and that's a mixture of bad and good. So I want to say it's probably about, I've cut my carb intake down probably about 25%, and I've increased my calories. So we're going to see how this all plays out and works. I'm excited to see. Hopefully I can get some gaining off of this. And if this works, then it's great. But if it doesn't, I want to go over another option. So we went over cinnamon and we went over chromium and we went over dietary changes. But the one thing that we didn't go over was what if you have it? Like that is the thing that is like the death sentence, it seems like, for some people. Like I was kind of in that state. And the truth is that doctors are usually going to start you out on metformin, which will make you lose a bunch of weight. I think that if you're a gainer, you have a few options. You can just go by what your doctor's saying and see what happens, which is what your doctor is going to say. And before I go any further, I'm not a licensed doctor. I want you to make your own health decisions. Like, I'm just talking based off of my research, some biology people that I talk to, majors that I talk to, things that, I've read off of various websites. So I'm not the 100% expert on diabetes management, but um, I'm going to try to work with it the best that I can. So we'll just say that. So going back, so he or she might put you on metformin. You have a choice that whether you want to take it or not. If you do want to go ahead and take it, then you might end up losing weight. I do know people that have gained on it. It's a rarity though, because it gives you GI issues and you don't want to eat with it. But if you do gain on it, great, then that's your thing. There's a medication called Actos that a lot of gainers have had success with that are not insulin dependent. So they basically reported a little bit of weight gain or stability by using it. And the only bad thing, it's got some really weird health side effects. So if you have an extensive family or everybody has a family, but extensive family history of cancer, it might not be a good option because there's a possibility it could cause things like pancreatic cancer and then if you also have excessive heart issues, things like congestive heart failure, Actos can possibly cause an interaction there. So you may have a little bit of a fight with your doctor on it, but it is one of those things that can really help. Finally, insulin is tough, especially in the United States. Like, it is really hard to get insulin. But if you do have insurance and you are able to get it, you can actually use insulin to get huge. Like, I've heard of people, I'm not going to say names, I have heard of certain people that have used insulin as a booster to help them gain weight. I think that's kind of hot. I also think it's incredibly dangerous. And I think it's hot because it demonstrates like this intense need to be big, but it's also scary because I know what happens like if you inject too much. Like, my mom had that happen because she's a diabetic and she got really sick. Like, we had to go to the hospital, and she managed to get her blood sugar back up, but it went down to really dangerous levels. So it's scary, but if you can balance it well, then you can really gain some major weight with it. So that is an option too. But so those are some available options. I would definitely stay away from things that would cause weight loss. I think anything that your doctor gives you, you need to pause on it and you need to say, I appreciate your opinion. Let me just think about it. I'll message your office or I'll give you a call if I'm interested in this. Go out there, do your research on it. Go on, there's a lot of different websites that lets you just look at the drug PDF file, which is the physician's, or PDR file, which is the physician's desk reference, that lets you look in there and see, here are all the side effects. You can go and look at studies on the particular drug that they want to prescribe. The reason why I want to say this is that there are certain drugs that will cause weight loss, and that it is an intended side effect or an intended method of action to increase insulin sensitivity in your body, and that will ultimately cause weight loss. It's not a matter of it being a side effect. It's that's what it's intended to do. So you really need to, if you have a doctor that wants you to push on that, you need to basically go back and be like, this isn't for me. Or you could just be upfront and just be like, look, I respect your medical opinion and what you're saying biologically makes sense, but I have my own mental and personal things against this. I can't do this. It kind of sounds a little anti-vaxxer, which I'm against, which is funny because I'm actually also wanting health freedom. But on the other hand, you're not intentionally making others sick. You're not refusing a vaccine in order to, like, for yourself, in like could possibly hurt somebody else. Like, getting diabetes, you're only technically hurting yourself. Like, you're not hurting other people in your life. People could say, oh, there's the mental damage or whatever, but the point of the matter is you are your own person at the end of the day. You need to make your own conscious health decisions, based off of what you know, and the research that you have available. um, and so that's what I found out. It was a really cool process. I put a lot of research together. I'm still putting it together. There's like just so much. And I just want to give a special shout out to everybody on Grommer, everybody on Fantasy Feeder. I actually just joined that website to get this information. I felt completely lost, and I had a few very good people give me the information I needed in order to do my research to succeed. And one final note I want to leave on that, it's a shame in this community that there is not a centralized resource for this information. I realize that it's scary, and I realize that these conversations are hard to have. But if you also want to be a big person, and if that's important to you, to your identity, and you want to remain a big person, then you should be educated enough to talk to your doctor and have these educated discussions. You and your medical provider should always act as a team. It should never be a one-sided approach. And I think that that one-sided approach will never work for people. It is one of those things that if you get on a medication and losing weight is making you depressed, but you're feeling like physically better, if you can handle the weight loss and you're okay with that, perfect. I'm not going to judge you. I wish you the best with it. I want everybody to make their own health decisions. If you're 320 and you want to get down to like 240 for your diabetes management and that is your goal, go ahead for it. Like, if you've reconciled that within your body and you're like, I know what this is what I want to do, fantastic. There are some people like us that cannot. I know, I mean, I have lost weight in the past and I just felt horrible. Not just mentally, but I just felt like icky. It almost was like it's almost like the reverse thing of what people get whenever they lose weight, or sorry, whenever they gain weight, like a normal person does. Like they're like, oh, like I'm gaining weight. I feel gross. I feel icky. I don't feel sexually active. I feel disgusting. Like the reverse happens to me. Like if I lose weight, I get those symptoms, and I would rather have fucking to jack in insulin or take my blood sugar or take a pill or do any of that, or have to like balance my diet a little bit by looking at carb counters or whatever. I would rather do that instead of the other thing, and that is my own personal health choice. My own personal health choice. I'm not hurting anybody. I am paying for that particular drug or whatever. A lot of it is out of my own pocket, and I will admit insulin I am a little worried about if that's the road that my pancreas gives me. I just have to take things as they come and not worry about, everything all at once. And that was the other thing I learned on this journey was, um, you just have to take one day at a time, and it's okay. Whatever happens, happens. So, sorry about that little rant there. I really just wish that there was a better spot in the community that this could be maintained. About a decade ago, I developed something called GainerHealth.com that didn't really go anywhere. I tried putting it together as a resource, but it sort of got lost. Um, but good news, I did approach the Grommer staff about seeing if I could put that on their site. I did not hear anything back. I am okay not hearing anything back. And I totally understand why they wouldn't. I mean, they would want to keep that more focused just on dating and everything. But if that fails, I will be putting together my thing that I started a long time ago, which was Gainer Health again. I probably won't be able to afford the IP address, but I am just going to put that somewhere, and it's just going to be something that I'll put on my profile. I'll get out there into the community. It's really just going to be a PHP board, which is just going to be just a message board I'm going to sign up for. And I'm going to put my research on there, and I'm going to create some designated areas people can talk about things. And I'm not going to be your lead resource, obviously. Like, I don't know everything. But I also want it to be an area people can talk about their medical stuff, talk about things as a community where they want to find hope instead of feeling lost and confused. You know, the the health with the pandemic and with healthcare and everything, the the dynamic of that has changed so much in 10 years when I first had launched Gainer Health. It had it was something that we could definitely just talk about and be like, well, like I'll just go to my doctor and, whatever, and I can definitely, uh, you know, hide this, or whatever. And, or, insurance was more readily available. But nowadays, that's becoming a more scarcer option. And I think if you're a big person and you're engaging in a dangerous activity, i.e., weight gain, there is something to be said about needing a resource, something that's available so you can talk to people and try to get everything together mentally before you go into that doctor's visit to have a really scary conversation. Um, and nobody should sit down and go through something and not have the education or the resources needed. So that's my goal with Gainer Health. I want to just provide a forum for people to talk about it, and I won't monitor it too much. It's going to be something I'm going to put up my stuff and be like, here you go, and um, have fun and enjoy. But I think it'll be helpful. And going back to Grommer, I don't think anybody should leave Grommer or harass the admins about not having something like this. Like, I think that if that is something that they want to focus on and do, that's fantastic. Like, if they want to just focus on dating, I also understand the liability behind it. It is scary, which is why mine is going to be a PHP board with just links to articles and stuff that I found and lots of disclaimers on it. So, in summary, that is what I found out. I feel great about everything, and I'm excited for the weekend. Going to be going over to a friend's house, getting lots of food, and yeah, I'm going to go actually eat now and get some food right now. So, hopefully, make my next video be a little bigger for you all and myself, but I'm not sure, so we'll see. So, all right. Well, you take care. I'll when I'm ready to launch Gainer Health, I will go ahead and I will put up a video about that. I'll let you all know when that's up and running, and you guys can join it and feel free to share your thoughts. Thanks again for watching this, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and stay safe out there and dry because it's the fall. Take care. Bye.